Hello everyone, my name is Tyler Simone and today I'll be reviewing The Perfect Find by Tia Williams. Today I'm coming to you with a book review. I will be reviewing The Perfect Find by Tia Williams. The lead character in the novel is a Black woman, which I love, and most of the characters in the book are Black, so that was really nice to see, and I know that that doesn't happen very often, so that really hooked me right away. So before we go into why I love the book, the pros, and then my cons, I want to talk a little bit about the characters so you can get a little bit more of an idea of what this book is all about. So Jenna is a 40-year-old woman who has been working in the entertainment/media world for years. She used to be this fashion director at this magazine called Darling Magazine. But in the book, there's a breakdown that's mentioned. So she's not working there anymore because of this breakdown. And they go into what that breakdown is and why it happened later on in the book. I don't want to give away too much, but she has this breakdown. And now at the start of the book, she's working at this new magazine called Stylezine. I'm really trying to find a way not to give you too many details. She's 40 years old. She's working with a bunch of 20-year-olds, mid 20-year-olds at this new magazine, and she's trying to keep up. She doesn't even know what Twitter is. She doesn't have an Instagram. She's 40, so she's a little bit delayed in terms of what's happening on social media. There's this character. Her name is Darcy, and Darcy is Jenna's boss. And what's crazy about that relationship is that Darcy is Jenna's arch nemesis. Darcy hates Jenna, and Darcy is just the most miserable person you can imagine her to be. She is a Black woman, so that's great. She is successful, that's great. But the way she communicates and treats people is absolutely terrible, and Jenna works underneath her. So if you can imagine working underneath your arch nemesis, it's not going to be good. So there's a lot of drama there, which I loved. I was all here for the drama. There's this character named Eric, and Eric and Jenna end up having this thing. Okay, I don't want to tell you too much, but Eric and Jenna have this thing. Eric is 22 years old, and Jenna thinks he is the most beautiful thing in the world. As you can imagine, the age difference causes a lot of stuff going on. They're kind of hiding their relationship, so that's a really big deal in this book, is that there's this hidden relationship that nobody knows about. Eric and Darcy have a very interesting relationship. So Eric and Jenna have a fling. Darcy and Eric have some sort of relationship. I'm not going to tell you what kind of relationship, but it somehow conflicts with the relationship and the fling that Eric and Jenna have. So Jenna and Eric are having this fling, right? And it gets really hot and steamy. I love that about this book. The sexual encounters were very visual, and I was all in. I think it's only right that I read you a piece of the description. Viewer discretion is advised, okay? Let me give you a quick little backstory. So Jenna and Eric, they end up going on this date, and it gets a little hot and steamy, but Jenna cuts it short and she goes home, and she kind of sort of invites Eric over. And this is what happens. Is this too graphic? I don't know. Let's read it anyway. Okay. Eric threw her down on the bed and all hell broke loose. He unhooked her bra and then ripped the flimsy material of her thong at the top of both thighs, tearing it off of her body. This was exactly what Jenna wanted. Insane, desperate desire. He licked and sucked her nipples, kneading her breasts with one hand, while the other stroked her clit firmly and slowly. Someone taught him this. She loved and hated whoever it was. At that moment, I knew that things were gonna get good. The sexual tension in this book is off the charts. Like I told you, this little fling is something that nobody knows about. That brings us to this next topic. When does sneaking around stop being fun? Because I feel like in the beginning, it's hot, it's sexy, nobody knows what's going on. But at some point, if you guys are really wanting to pursue this relationship, you're gonna wanna do things out in public. You're gonna wanna go on dates, go to the bar, and that is how it kind of goes for Eric and Jenna. This thing is happening, it's fun, but then they battle, you know, should we be public with this or not? I really liked that this novel explored the sexuality of a woman, and it explored the sexuality of a woman in her 40s. It's a really interesting perspective to read about because she's 40 years old, she's single, she's in some way starting her life over at this new job, but she doesn't have anybody, you know, she's not really dating anybody that frequently, and Eric kind of is her new boo, and he's 22. So that whole situation is something else. And at first I didn't know how this whole thing was gonna work. She's 40, he's 22, but then after a while I started to realize, okay, he's actually really wise beyond his years. He knows what to say, and he seems to be a lot more mature than some of the adults in this book. So I was kind of on board with the whole Eric and Jenna thing despite their age difference. And they brought up that theme in this book, you know, the fact that men date younger women and it's seen as okay, but when a woman wants to date someone that's younger, there's an issue. And that's true. There's absolutely 100% a double standard there. And that wasn't the only double standard that Tia Williams brought up in this book. She also talked about how men are praised for often awful and savage things that they do to get to the top, but women are looked at negatively for those same things. And this was brought up in a conversation that Darcy and Jenna were having. Now, we have two very powerful Black women working in the industry, and Darcy was the one that brought up this point of the double standard because she is a cutthroat woman who has done a lot of things not so good to get to the top. But she's saying that when women do those things, the savage things, you know, you're playing people, you're lying to people, doing whatever it takes to get to the top, is looked down upon. But a man who does those same things is praised. And I think that's pretty true as well. I really love that being a woman and pregnancy was brought up in this book. Darcy and Jenna have this conversation about pregnancy and having children, and Darcy is someone who didn't want children. She does have a son, but she didn't want children. She had him out of spite. She says that being a mother makes her teeth hurt, which that's not good. But Jenna, on the other hand, is someone who has always wanted children. She's 40 years old and she doesn't have kids. So the book tackles that and how, you know, a woman may feel in her 40s who doesn't have any children, who has really, really wanted them. And it made me kind of sad because she at some points is, you know, rubbing her stomach and talking about being a mother and how bad she craves to be a mother. But to think that at 40 years old you can't, or, you know, you may not be able to have kids sucks. Let's talk about virginity, because Eric and Jenna are having this conversation later in the book and they're talking about virginity. They're talking about when they lost their virginity. And I wanted to bring this up because I think it's really interesting that men often lose their virginity a lot sooner than women, and it's not by choice. I feel like men are pressured into having sex and nobody talks about that. I don't feel like anybody talks about that. Men are pressured into sex all the time. I feel like when they get to a certain age, their friends, their uncles, their older brothers are pushing them to have sex when they're not even necessarily ready for it. But anyways, when did you lose your virginity? This is Jenna asking Eric. He says, "This is an awkward line of questioning." He grimaced. "I was too young, my 13th birthday, but it was all Tim's fault." See? 13. It was Tim's fault, and Tim is his best friend. So I'm assuming that Tim pressured him into having sex or something like that, which I feel like happens all the time. Jenna responds by saying, 13? I was 19. And that, ladies and gentlemen, proves my point. So another thing that I really liked about the novel is that a few of Jenna's fashion columns were sprinkled throughout the book every few chapters, and I noticed that they always coincided somehow with what was going on in the story. Like at some point someone was asking for advice on what to wear for a first date, and then Jenna went on a date right after that, and I could tell that she was almost taking her own advice. So I like that about the book. I thought that was really, really interesting. Let's talk about the fact that your ex always comes back. The exes always come back. So Jenna had this ex, right? And while she's having this fling with Eric, you know, she mentions this person and he comes up every now and then in the book. We get introduced to him, whatever. But towards the end of the book, he is now thinking about her and he wants her back. But the thing is, he left her years and years ago. So now he wants to get back with her. It starts talking about how he's coming up with wedding plans and now he's ready for her. He wasn't ready for her back then, but he's ready for her now. And I just feel like that's always the case. Why is it that men are never ready for women when they're ready for them? And then by the time you're ready, we've moved on. We've moved on. Not saying that that was my personal experience, but I'm just saying. I would say that this book did a great job of bringing up different themes that are worth talking about, like motherhood and becoming a mother, the different ways to become a mother, women dating men that are younger than them, the power struggles between Black women and just women in general, how childhood affects the way you grow up and how you are as an adult. It talked a lot about sex, the princess problem, growing up thinking that Prince Charming is just gonna come and sweep you off of your feet. So now that you understand a little bit more about the story, let's talk about my pros and cons. So one of the pros that I appreciate is that the ideas and the thoughts of the characters were clear and italicized. So it gave me more of an idea and insight into their thoughts as characters. I love that. So I was able to differentiate when they were talking and when they were thinking certain things. And that was really, really helpful for me. I love the sex. I felt like it was just enough sex. It wasn't too much. It was vulgar, but in a tasteful way. Like, I was able to visualize exactly what was going down in those rooms and I was very entertained, but I wasn't grossed out. It wasn't too much. So if you like sex, there's a little bit of sex in this book. I loved that this story was centered around a 40-year-old woman and a 22-year-old man. It was a love story that was super entertaining, super hot, super spicy, very unexpected, but I really appreciated it. Now, as far as the things that I didn't necessarily like. So the dialogue and the way that it's broken down and set on the page is a little bit confusing. There are times where there was one line of dialogue and then there was another line of dialogue right afterwards and I couldn't figure out who said what, but I would go back and figure it out. And that's just kind of how I went with it. But I saw reviews on Goodreads about that as well, so I know I'm not the only one that was getting a little bit confused by the dialogue. The words and the dialogue itself were good. It was just the way that it was formatted on the page that was a little bit confusing and hard to follow at times. Also, as I got further and further in the book, there were more and more typos, and I don't know why that is. I am assuming that there maybe wasn't that good of an editor, or they didn't take as much time as they should have to correct the typos, but that was a little bit frustrating and a little disappointing. Although I still got the gist of what was being said and what was going on in the story, it kind of sucks to see that there are typos in a book. And it was towards the end, so that kind of just makes me feel like whoever edited it was a little bit lazy. I don't know. I'm just saying. Overall, I loved the story. I was thoroughly entertained. This book was rather long. It took me a while to get through, to be honest. This book is 363 pages. So if you're okay with that, I suggest that you pick this up. It's very entertaining. This seems like a summer book. We're getting into summer. It's summer now. So if you're looking for a fun, flirty, sexy, romance, modern love story, young adult novel, you might want to pick this up. I liked it. that completes my very first book review. If you have any critique for me at all, don't feel shy. I really am looking for some pointers on how to do this. If you really like the way I did it, let me know as well. That way I know to keep doing it. But because this is my first book review, I want to know, should I have gone more into detail about what happened? Did you want me to talk a little bit more about the characters? Because I'm like, should I give them the spoilers? Because I don't know if I would want to know the spoilers. But you guys let me know what you want from me and from my book reviews. In the meantime, make sure to leave me a comment before you go and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. I do want to say thank you to all of my new subscribers. I am on my way to 400 subscribers, which is absolutely insane. I appreciate everybody, and I'm so happy that you're enjoying this content as much as I'm enjoying making it. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. Let me know down below what you would like to see from me. I did get a request to possibly do more journal entries and to do a makeup tutorial. So if those are things that you're also interested in, let me know and drop down any more video ideas that you have for me. And I will see you in my next video. Bye. That's a wrap.